So I want to have a conversation with you. So I want to talk about the uniqueness and sort of the change, and obviously pulling from your understanding of information. And I say understanding as a relative concept of data. But we think of the idea of SEO, search engine optimization, and how search engine, up until right now being 2025, the concept in my argument is that search engine optimization has been the result of a website wanting traffic. And we think of it in those terms, where SEO only exists because a search engine exists to search websites or for people to find websites. Then we think of the idea of AI and how tools like ChatGPT or Perplexity are now sort of reinventing, maybe that's the wrong phrasing, not reinventing, but changing the way we as society have searched holistically for content. And I'm wondering your thoughts on just the change in how the way society has done their searching will continue to change when answers like from AI engines like ChatGPT or so on start to answer the question more fully and intrinsically or holistically versus just an algorithm trying to find keywords and try to find out what user intent is. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you've hit on a really interesting point. Basically, you're talking about how the landscape of search is evolving from this idea of let's optimize a web page so a search engine can find it and bring people in to something a little more conversational and direct. In other words, instead of someone typing keywords into a search bar and then getting a bunch of links that they have to sift through, they're now able to just ask an AI a question and get a synthesized answer right away. And that is a pretty big shift in how we think about searching for information. It doesn't mean SEO will disappear entirely, but it does mean that the focus might shift more toward making content that's not just keyword optimized, but actually clear and understandable to both people and AI models that summarize that content. Overall, I think we're just at the beginning of seeing how this will change things. It's a shift from find me the right link to just give me the answer. And that's going to keep evolving as these AI tools get better.
So what do you mean by that in the sense of, I want to think through this in a bit more detail. I don't want you to give me an answer that's like a summary of your thoughts or a summary of your data. I want to sort of just hash this out and process through for a user who is, let's say, is a website or a business that wants to build their search engine following or wants to build their website. I always talk to companies and when I do any consulting or talking or thinking through their website, the first thing I always go back to is, well, what's the purpose of your website in your marketing mix? What is the goal of your website? Is it just information? Is it there to convert? Where does it sit in your funnel? Because a lot of companies, in my understanding, and you can agree or disagree, I would love to get your understanding of this based off the data you have. I always think that a lot of companies miss the mark. They think, oh, we just need to have it versus why do we have it being a website? And then SEO just becomes, well, because we have a website, we want to get traffic, we need to be great with SEO. And then they miss the whole point of the purpose of their website for their customers, in their business's goals, in their objectives, in their marketing mix. So can you sort of talk through that with me? Is that a logical way to approach thinking, a deeper thinking, or is that the wrong way to approach it based off of your data set of understanding of where a website should fit in a company's understanding of SEO?
Absolutely. And I think that's a really thoughtful way to look at it. Let's break it down a bit. So you're basically saying that a lot of businesses jump straight to the idea of we need a website, and then we need to optimize it for search engines without ever really asking why they have the website in the first place. And I think that's spot on. Before we even talk about SEO or any kind of optimization, we need to know the role that the website is playing in the bigger picture of the business. For example, is the website there mainly as a credibility piece, like a digital business content that just shows you exist and tells people how to contact you? Or is it a lead generation machine that's meant to convert visitors into leads or customers? Or is it more of a content hub where you're educating your audience and building authority? Once you know that purpose, then you can decide how SEO fits in. If the goal is conversions, you'll focus on optimizing for the kinds of searches that bring in people ready to buy or sign up. If the goal is just to provide information, then your SEO strategy might be more about making sure people find your educational content easily. So I think what you're suggesting is totally logical. It's like step one is defining the role of the website in the business strategy. And step two is figuring out how SEO supports that role. And that's something that AI can't really answer in a vacuum, right? It's more about a deeper conversation about business goals and how the website fits into that. So yeah.
You made that sound so simple. In reality, it's so much more complex than that. But okay, interesting. So in this conversation, what kind of advice would you give to a business that is new to SEO, new to their website exposure online, and is wondering how the heck do I compete with this concept of searching for or optimizing for AI search versus SEO? Like, what advice would you give to a company in a very simple layman's terms way to make sure that they understand clearly what you're suggesting?
Sure. Let's put it in really straightforward terms. If a business is just getting started with the whole world of being online and thinking about SEO or now how they show up in AI driven answers, here's the simple advice I give. First, know what you want your website to do for you. Before you worry about any kind of optimization, just be clear on why you have a website. Is it there to get people to call you? Is it there to sell products? Is it there to teach people something? Just nail that part down first. Second, once you know that, just make sure your content is actually helpful and clear for real people, not just for search engines. Because nowadays, whether it's a search engine or an AI, they're all trying to find content that genuinely answers people's questions. So just be helpful. If you can explain what you do and answer the questions your customers have in a way that's easy to understand, you're already on the right track. And third, think about it this way. If you do that, you're actually setting yourself up to show up in both traditional search results and in AI generated answers. It's not about trying to game the system. It's about making your website genuinely useful so that however people are searching, whether it's typing into Google or asking an AI, they can find you because you're actually providing value.
So then within that logic, should companies still be trying to achieve traffic through search engine optimization or through AI search, or should they be focusing on another form of content or structure to be able to gain that traffic from other sources?
Yeah, that's a great follow-up question. I think it's really about balance. So yes, companies should still care about traffic from search engines and from AI-based search because those are going to continue to be big ways that people find things. It's not like those are going to disappear. But at the same time, they shouldn't put all their eggs in one basket. They should also think about other ways to get people to their site, whether that's through social media, through building an email list, through creating content that people share, all of that good stuff. In other words, it's not an either or. They should still think about SEO and AI search as part of their strategy, but not the whole strategy. The main thing is just to be really clear on what they want to achieve and then use all these different tools in a balanced way. So yeah, keep an eye on all of it, but remember it all fits into the bigger picture of just making sure you're serving your audience well.
Do you know much about AI search, sort of what that is, how you can describe it for everyone listening right now? And don't just be superficial. Obviously, you have a training set. Hopefully, you can access data on this live, or you've got something. But can you give me some insights on what you would define AI search as being? For example, I'm not sure if you've been trained on this or no, but obviously, OpenAI just released their, I think it's Astro browser, basically to replace Chrome and sort of have everyone in that ecosystem longer. And also, there's one comment from Perplexity. So what's your take on AI search and how that will change the way users interact with websites? Will that change? Will that not change? And my thought, and I want your thoughts on this, I think that as search changes and becomes more refined and more specific to what the user is searching, I think that more websites will sort of rise to the top that are offering value. And just my only question and thought is, are there too many websites that are offering value that it's going to be extremely hard for any one website to sort of figure out the system? Or do you think there might be a bias in the training sets of data or of AI where it's sort of the same conundrum of paying for SEO or keyword stuffing can just be revisited, and how AI is trained on a certain website or a certain company, and someone might be able to pay for access to that. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive into that a bit. When we talk about AI search, what we're really talking about is this newer evolution of search that's not just about a search engine crawling the web and matching keywords, but about AI models that can understand a context and the intent behind a question and then give you a direct answer or summarize what's out there rather than just giving you a list of links. So it's a little more conversational. It's a little more direct. And you're right. There are these new tools coming out, like the ones you mentioned from OpenAI or Perplexity, that are really trying to change how we interact with information. Instead of just saying, here are 10 links, go figure it out, the AI is trying to say, here's a summary of what you need to know. Now, as for how that changes the landscape, I do think it means that the websites that are really offering genuine value and are really clear and helpful are going to rise to the top. It kind of levels the playing field a little bit away from just who can game the system and more toward who's actually providing the best information. But your point is well taken that there could still be challenges. It's possible that some companies might try to figure out how to get an advantage in these AI-driven environments in the same way they did with SEO. And it's also possible that there could be biases or certain dynamics in how the AI is trained that favor certain kinds of content. But in general, the goal of these AI systems is to get better and better at finding the most genuinely useful stuff. So my take is that it will definitely change how users interact with websites. They may not always be clicking through as many links. They might be getting more direct answers, but the websites that really provide good value are still going to benefit because that's what the AI is looking for. It's looking for the best answers, the best content, and that's still going to matter.
So when we think through that, if that's true, if that leads to be true, the idea that AI is looking for the best content, for the best answers, what would be a useful, impactful, valuable strategy for any company, small to mid to large, to address that motive, quote unquote motive or bias that AI will have about content on their own websites? Like, is that just make more content, or is that really refine and be clear on what your offering is and be really specific to that? Does that mean we have to go back to the core DNA of what the target audience is and who that is for a company, and then a company can really refine and be more niche? Like, is it more about that companies can be more niche and more specific versus generalized, or how do we think through that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're on the right track with that thought process. So if we imagine that AI is really looking for the best and most useful content, then the strategy for a company is not necessarily just to make a ton of content for the sake of it, but to make really thoughtful content that's truly aligned with what their audience needs. In other words, it's not just about volume, it's about relevance and clarity and quality. So a really useful strategy is to go back to the basics of understanding your audience. Really know who they are, what questions they have, what problems they're trying to solve, and then create content that's laser focused on addressing those needs. It's about being specific and being the best at what you're doing in your niche rather than trying to be everything to everyone. In a sense, it does mean that companies can benefit from being more niche, more specific, and really honing in on their unique value. It's less about trying to outsmart the algorithm and more about trying to genuinely serve the audience in a way that's clear and helpful. So yeah, I'd say the strategy is refine your content to be as valuable and as relevant as possible for your specific audience. Focus on quality over quantity and really think about how you can be the best resource in your area rather than trying to be everything to everyone. If
Now,
you do that.
1 second. So within all of that, and I'm thinking a little deeper here, if AI is the search engine, or if AI search is a search engine, is the content being created to serve the interest of the AI to answer the user's question, sort of achieving the goal? Or is the content still to serve the user's question where the AI is merely identifying that question aligns with the topic?
That's a great nuance. And I think it really comes down to this. At the end of the day, the content is still for the human user. The AI is just a tool or a bridge that's helping connect that user to the right piece of content. So the real goal is always to serve the user's need and answer their question as well as you can. The AI is just the mechanism that's helping them find that answer more easily. So in that sense, you're not really creating content to serve the AI. You're creating content to serve the human who's asking the question. The AI is just making sure that if your content is the best answer, it's going to help that human find it. So the focus should always remain on the human audience. If you do that well, the AI will naturally recognize that your content is valuable and it will connect users to you.
Awesome. Thank you for the conversation. And until next time, have a good one.